Week number 10. Last week we had quite an aggressive week in terms of volatility and one directional market. USD got pretty strong from the beginning of the week and carried it through all the way till Friday and past NFP. Having a look at the CFTC data, not surprisingly, Euro longs did cut back on their positions, but open interest rose. That is because short positions are adding to. So that's quite a healthy market in Euro there. We have a two-sided market where both are committing, and I like to see that that's an active market where people have ideas they like to express. On the other side, we had GBP though, which did collapse as well, but the CFTC data does not reflect that. Mind you, that is only covering up to Tuesday. Know what happened after that. I like to imagine that some of these longs came off the way it traded last week, but open interest is falling off there, so that means maybe there's a little bit more position squaring instead of new positions starting to take form and new ideas emerging. Most of the positivity in GBP seems to be priced in, and it would be really interesting if you can find another leg in the weeks to come. That's just an overview on the positioning. Next week we have a good calendar, a good data calendar with a lot of one or 2 points I'm really keen on trading. The first asset I'm looking at is Euro USD. It's quite at a level where I like to see a bounce actually before it collapses lower. In terms of where we headed beyond next week in Euro USD, because up into Thursday where we have ECB, price action might be a little bit without a direction. But where we're trading beyond that, a lot of analysts are not interested to buy Euro USD until it actually drops back to 117, and some actually will not step back in until it's at 115. You don't see a lot of bullish calls right now going along while we are at these levels. So that's obviously concerning if you're bullish on this asset. The reason understanding is why it's collapsing like that. The US bond market is selling off, and as you sell bonds you will raise dollars, and that is causing US to move higher against all currencies, and it pronounces a little bit more as Euro USD is a heavier basket in the USD. That's really just to understand what is happening. I touched on the yield divergence a couple of weeks back, and that is still playing out. So you have a yield advantages where the US has got a better yield than the bonds, and that is also helping the currency to fall lower. But going into next week, if this level does not hold in the beginning of the week and create some sort of a positive traction, I will be getting more aggressive to target 117. But ideally I like the Thursday event to clear out, because my understanding is that the ECB won't be as dovish as market expect, and that could cause a short-term reaction where Euro actually goes higher before the next week where it starts moving lower again. So that's for Euro USD. The level to watch and the date to watch would be Thursday. Another asset we like to have a look at is also Euro CAD, as next week we will be having the Bank of Canada rate decision, so it's always an important mover. We're very close to this big 1.50 level. Back in June I shorted EuroCAD to try to capture that, but just to quickly show you, it literally played off. You see sometimes really resistive and really, how to put it, really tough price action like that, where you just see the level gets defended relentlessly. Just a few hand pips above these big levels, and that's usually indicative that there is an exotic barrier, an exotic option barrier. That means somebody bought an option for that particular level. If that level gets hit, the option writer will need to pay out a hefty sum. So you find the option dealers sometimes tend to defend these levels, so you don't have to pay out huge sums. But now we are coming close again to that level, and it really feels like next week will be the week where this level will give, and possibly another 100 or 200 pips after that. So I'll be really interested to see what the price action is around on Wednesday. So there is two assets I'm keeping an eye on. There's loads of movements on the AUD front. There's loads of movements on the GBP front next week, but nothing at this point I can predict. I need to wait data to come through. I need to see how sentiment plays out before I can make a better decision. But what I'm really interested in, if you're trading Bitcoin, you're interested in it as well. Next week we'll be having the US CPI release, which is the inflation. Quick explanation about how inflation could affect, or is actually affecting Bitcoin lately, as Bitcoin is getting used as an inflation hedge, and inflation in the short term is picking up. Market is moving in tandem with that. Now, interestingly, the asset doesn't actually move a lot when the inflation print comes out. It moves a lot after the London fix. So every day you get 4 o'clock London fix for all the FX currencies get fixed on a certain benchmark. Bitcoin is affected by that as well. I've marked the last 2 London fixes that occurred after the inflation print. So I'm going to show you the dates here. Last one was the 10th of February, the one before the 13th, and these other dates are pretty similar, where you saw Bitcoin creating quite a leap after that. So this was the level where the London fix was, and it came out of it and created a bigger leap, and it actually bounced back into it before teetering out. The time before was on January, on 13th we had the CPI print, and again Bitcoin found quite a strong move after that, and the level tended to create quite an important factor for several weeks after that. So each month you actually get a CPI print from the US, which will be a key driver for that day and the following trading sessions for Bitcoin, as it is becoming an inflation hedge and as an asset. And I'd like you to keep an eye on going into Wednesday, particularly on Wednesday afternoon, going to Thursday. You should see some really decent moves on the BTC front. Again, there's a lot of other assets that are moving next week. At this point, it's really difficult to tell. Personally, I really like to buy S&P 500 on Thursday when it dropped there, but the way yields were moving, it kind of scared me off, and I didn't actually buy the dip in the end. But my base case was that it moves up higher from here to make a bigger leap towards the 4,000 mark eventually. That covers it all for this week. So looking for EURUSD to stabilize early week. Preferably like to sell it after the ECB is done. BTC should have a big move in the afternoon on Wednesday, and keeping a close eye out how CAD develops after the BOC meeting on Wednesday as well. That would be all from me. Thank you.